So you bought a property at a great price, but now how do you add even more value to get the best return on your investment? So a really common strategy in investment, in property investment, is buy, refurbish, refinance, or buy to let property. And actually, yes, it is true when people say you make your money when you buy, but actually, number one, that's not quite true. Number two, you make most of your money in the long term through capital gains, but that doesn't mean we can't immediately benefit from it today. Number one is development, and development can come in quite a lot of ways dependent on the areas that you're in. So the most obvious is up, down, back, down, left, right, wherever it is, development within the property. So you could go up into the loft, that's often increasing about 30% value to the property, or you could go down if you've got cellar space, you just need to get some tanking or some damp proofing down there, or indeed you can go to the side or at the back of the property. But other ways of adding value, dependent on where you are and the layout of the property, is you could turn a house into 2 flats. I've seen this done really well in higher value areas, being 300,000 or more, or indeed 3-story properties, even in lower value areas, 150 to 200 grand, and splitting it into 3 flats very easily just by putting them on their own utilities and having their own council tax and gas supply. Very easy to do, very profitable. If you've seen some of these projects, I've got a property down in Stamford that represents this, where it's a nice semi-detached property with 2 garages, a double garage there, and now we have got planning where those 2 garages are, knock down the garages, and we are building another 3-bed semi-detached / end of terrace property, increasing the overall value of the property to 600,000 from 300,000, making £100,000 profit and a great rental to add to the portfolio. Or indeed, you could see the one that I've got going on in Basildon right now, very similar from a development point of view. It's got a semi-detached bungalow on it, and then it's got a side garden that is big enough to get planning, which is still currently going through. As soon as I get it, it will be on the channel. And that is going to be another 3-bed bungalow that adds again another 300 to 350,000 pounds to the plot value, just by acknowledging what land or access is available. Number 2 is refurbishment of the property. Now, this will depend on your overall budget, but if you've got a lower budget, concentrate on either the kitchen or the bathroom that seem to add around 8% of the overall 10% uplift to a property. So a property where you spent money on a good kitchen will get around 8% higher in terms of offers than anywhere else, which is absolutely crazy. Number 2 is the bathroom, and number 3 is pretty much anywhere else. So something just to be thinking about there. Next is a general makeup of the property. So I don't mean like new kitchen and everything like that. I mean new carpets throughout and a painting. That will be about 4-5 grand for a typical property, and can add again up to 10% to the value of a property. And number 3, this is the worst way of adding value historically, but looking at the electrics and the gas. So getting a CP12, which is a gas safety certificate, and an EICR, which is the electrical certificate, and that will bring out things where you can improve the property. The reason I say historically this doesn't actually improve it much is because you can't actually see it. But with all of the environmental awareness that's gone on over the last couple of years, I've actually found a lot more people interested in that sort of thing and the environmental impact that they're having. Number 3 is the outside. What sort of acreage do you have with your property? All right, maybe not acreage, but what space do you have with the property? And this really comes in 2 major ways. Number 1, could you put a drive on? Believe it or not, it could add up to 5% to the value. And considering a drive, including the council getting around, can cost only 5-6 grand, depending on the area, that's a lot of value. We're doing it on my mum's property right now, and it's going to increase the value of the property by about £50,000. What? Now that is in an area where parking's getting harder and harder, but getting a parking space on a drive is worth so much money to a majority of places, especially as the available land that we can build on is getting more and more restricted. But even if you don't have that, tidying up the outside areas. Something I never used to do, but now I do, is I allocate between £1,000 and £1,500 on a buy-to-let or a flip property just to tidy up, put some pebble dash down. Does it increase the price that people are willing to pay on the property? I'm not so sure about that, but it definitely makes it easier for somebody to visualize living in the property, making your house their home. And what that does is creates a bit of a bidding war effect on the property, driving up the end value. Next is the layout of the property. So the layout of the property is really about the room allocations here. There's so many times I look at mentees' properties where they're about to buy it, about to have a 2-bed, but they don't realize that because of the layout of the rooms and the space, you could actually move one of the walls and it would immediately become a 3-bed and a solid 3-bed property. In Bermondsey, when I was looking a couple of years ago on this, we were talking about £500,000 1-bedroom flats where we'd move the bathroom where the front room is and then make another bedroom and do a kitchen diner type situation, and that would be the main living area, creating a 2-bed, spending about £100,000 on it, so 600 total, and making it a 2-bed worth £750,000. So not doing a dramatic piece of work on it, just by moving that one wall and looking at the layout of the property, you create a dramatic different outcome in both the effect, size, and price of the property. Number 5, and this really only relates if you've got a leasehold property, is check how long the lease is and the terms around it. People miss this out a lot, but actually if your lease is below 80 years, that's when people start getting a little bit funny about it, and actually it'd be very cheap for you, likely in comparison to the value of the property, to get it extended. So what you can do is you can issue something called a Section 42. That will start a conversation with your freeholder and you can start negotiating the extension. Within this as well, you can look at the terms of it, and so if there are archaic terms like it doubles every 20 years or anything like that in ground rent and service charge, that is your time to negotiate more favorable terms on your behalf whilst you're negotiating that extension, making the overall property more valuable to when you refinance it or indeed your end buyer. Finally, within this, you can split title. So I mentioned splitting it up into individual flats, but also if you've got a block of apartments or something like that that has the freehold, a lot of people own this with the freehold. Say it's 10 units and they got it for 90 grand, but actually they might be worth £110,000 per flat. It costs about £1,000 for each lease, but you spend 10 grand getting them split up. Then you can sell off the apartments individually, retain the freehold, and then sell that elsewhere as well. Suddenly you've made over £100,000 profit on top of what you already had, or indeed you can individually refinance those units, again adding value to your bottom line. So they are 6 of the main ways that I found to add value to property. If I missed any out apart from buying at a good price or waiting, let me know in the comments. I'd love to add more value to you guys as we're going through. If you are new to the channel, it would help out tremendously if you want to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And on your way to the next video, if you could lightly tap the like button, and I'll see you there.